Hello and welcome to True Crime AI, where we cover old and new cases developed solely through AI. So please sit back and relax as we get into our first story. This is the case of the Long Island serial killer. Welcome to New York, the city that never sleeps, offering popular tourist sites such as Empire State, Central Park, and the Statue of Liberty. All of this plus staggering beaches, including Gilgo Beach, which is where our story first begins. The Long Island serial killer, also known as the Gilgo Beach Killer, was responsible for the murders of multiple women, mainly associated with the sex trade industry. The killings began in 1996, coming to a close in the summer of 2023, 27 years later. The case first gained attention in 2010, 14 years after the first suspected murder, when the remains of 10 young women and children were discovered along Ocean Parkway on Gilgo Beach. The case was eventually flung wide open in 2010 during the search for a 23-year-old woman, Shannon Gilbert, who unfortunately went missing on May 1, 2010, after a distressed call to 911 was made. Police started investigating the 911 call, and during the search for Shannon, a police officer and his canine dog, Blue, stumbled across dismembered remains. These were not the remains of Shannon as previously thought. It was the remains of 4 other women, dubbed as the Gilgo Four. The victims' remains were found in various stages of decomposition, and some were wrapped in burlap sacks. The police eventually managed to identify the Gilgo Four. An extensive search and investigation was put in place, where they then sadly found a further 6 victims across the beach. Police say all of the women were petite and 3 of them were wrapped in similar burlap sacks. This suggested a correlation and specific type based on the identities. Police began their hunt to find a serial killer targeting escorts. They discovered that the earliest victim was missing in 1996. It was at this point they knew that they were dealing with a serial killer with a specific MO. Our first victim of the Gilgo Four was Moren Brainerd Barnes, who went missing on July 6, 2007. Moren was a single mother of 2 living in Norwich, Connecticut, 120 miles away. She had begun work as an escort, posting ads on Craigslist and other websites to meet clients. On July 6, 2007, Moren's mobile phone was called by a burner phone. Between July 6th and July 9th, there were a total of 16 untraceable interactions between the client and Moren prior to her disappearance. On July 8th, Moren contacted her sister, Missy Can, late at night from Penn Station in Manhattan. Missy stated that Moren was getting on a late train and was never heard or seen again after this. The second victims of the Gilgo Four was Melissa Bartholomew, who went missing in July 2009. Melissa was only aged 24 at the time. She moved from Buffalo, New York, to New York City to work as a hairdresser. At some point, she also began working as an escort to gain an additional income. Just to make the situation worse for Melissa's family, they started receiving phone calls in July 17, 2009. The calls were from Melissa's phone to her younger sister, Amanda, who was 15 at the time. A number of calls followed in the coming weeks. The caller told Amanda he had killed Melissa, all of which was reported to the police. A correlation was still not found between the girls. This must have been devastating for the family. The third victim was Megan Waterman, who went missing on June 5, 2010. Megan was 22 at the time and was a mother from Scarborough, Maine, who also worked as an escort. On June 5, 2010, she was contacted by a burner phone which had just been activated that same day. At 1:31 a.m., Megan's phone was again contacted by the burner phone, similar to the MO of the previous missing women. Security video showed Megan leaving a Holiday Inn Express in Howport, Long Island, around the same time. This was the last time she was seen alive. Heartbreakingly, her daughter was just 3 years old when she disappeared. Her daughter stated in a 2020 interview that if she could have spoken to her mom, she would tell her that she loves her. Our fourth victim, Amber Costello, went missing in September 2010. Amber, who was only 27 years old, worked as an escort. She was currently living in Long Island, was contacted by a burner phone at the time of her disappearance. This is where we begin to see the clues that led to the capture. Amber's roommate described the man as an ogre, driving a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche the night she disappeared. The man offered $1,500 for the night. The client then managed to get Amber, who is an experienced escort, to leave her house without her purse or mobile phone. After calling her several times throughout the course of the day, this demonstrated the killer had strong manipulation tactics that developed over the years. Moving back to May 1, 2010, Shannon Gilbert disappears. Shannon was 23 years old at the time, was working as an escort. In the early morning hours of May, Shannon made a frantic phone call to 911. She had been at a client's home in Long Island. Shannon said she believed someone was after her. Shannon took off running and told the 911 operator there were people trying to kill her. Then, Shannon unfortunately vanished that same night. The search continued for Shannon from 2010 to the spring of 2011. In December 2011, Shannon's items were located in the marsh 8 miles from Gilgo Beach, 1 year after the discovery of Gilgo 4. A week following the discovery of Shannon's items, skeletal remains were located just under half a mile from her belongings. Investigators have stipulated that her death was not suspicious and was likely due to either drowning or hypothermia. During the original search back in 2010, 6 further victims were discovered on the same beach, on top of the original 4. Jessica Taylor, who was an escort, who went missing in 2003. Valerie Mack, who worked as an escort in the year 2000. Heartbreakingly, a toddler girl, who may not have been linked to the case. Another female woman was found 6 miles away and was linked directly to the DNA of the toddler. An Asian male who was dressed in women's clothing. Finally, Karen Vergata, an escort, who disappeared in 1996. It was a sickening sight for everyone. After the discovery of the 11 missing women and children were located, for the next 10 years, no arrests were made in connection to these murders. To get a fresh set of eyes, and to support the investigation, a new task force was created in 2022 by the Suffolk County Department to tackle this case. It turns out this new task force actually potentially solved the case in 6 weeks due to substantial evidence linking the cases. The first clue was Amber Costello's roommate, giving a clear description of the man and the vehicle who picked her up before she disappeared. The second was a burner phone, which was linked to the majority of the phone records of the girls who has disappeared. With the clues and FBI support in 2012, they were able to link the calls to a specific area through cell towers. This area was Massapequa Park, where they used the original clues to build a portfolio of the suspect who fit this description. This narrowed the search down to a man captured on CCTV in a cell phone store in that area. This man's name was Rex Heuermann, who was the lead suspect in this case. Other evidence that linked Rex to the case was that the burners were all used in Massapequa Park, where Rex currently lived. Rex also drive a Chevrolet Avalanche, and to be honest, after looking at a picture of him, the ogre description alone is a dead giveaway. During the investigation, police began to follow Rex to gain more evidence. During the tailing, Rex discarded a pizza box, which was consistent with the DNA found on Megan Waterman's body. With the piling evidence, the police formally arrested Rex on July 14, 2023 for the murders of Megan and Amber due to DNA. He is also the prime suspect for Maureen's death. So you're probably asking yourself, why hasn't he been charged with the other 8 murders? Only the DNA has been found on 2 of the victims during the first initial discovery, meaning that the murder other victims cannot be proven beyond reasonable doubt. In my opinion, there is too much of a coincidence for 10 victims to have similar traits, who all happen to be located on the same beach. Despite the mountain of evidence and location of the bodies, it is believed that Rex is responsible for all disappearances and bodies located on Gilgo Beach. Rex and his lawyer have pleaded not guilty to all counts and has stated that he has nothing to do with this. So who is Rex, and what was the motive? Rex, aged 59, is a well-dressed family man with a daughter, stepson and a wife, who works as an architect, living in Massapequa Park in Manhattan. Neighbors have described Rex as a normal working man and would have never suspected his double life. It's always the ones you least suspect in these types of cases. So how did Rex manage to do this around having a wife, kids and a full-time job? This is actually another correlation based on the dates on the missing women. Rex's wife would take their children to see her family in Iceland during the summers. Based on the disappearance dates, this correlates with the dates of the murders. He's currently awaiting trial in Suffolk County Jail without bail. So how did Rex go almost 30 years without being noticed or investigated? 1. The geographic spread of the crime scenes, spanning different areas and jurisdiction, making the investigation complex and challenging. The pieces of the puzzle were not put together correctly to understand the similarities. 2. In my opinion, he had a type. However, the motive behind the killings remains unclear, making it difficult for investigators to establish patterns or a specific profile for the killer. 3. The killings happened from the 90s to the 2010s, which made linking the crimes more difficult. The crimes spanned over a considerable period, from the mid-1990s to at least 2010. The prolonged time frame may have allowed the killer to avoid detection. Either way, the nightmare and demonic reign this man had of these victims is now over. Hopefully, we can see a strong prosecution and punishment on behalf of the victims. Hopefully the family can find peace after this ordeal. Let me know your thoughts on this case. Do you think Rex could have been caught earlier based on the DNA evidence found on Megan and the description given by Amber's roommate? Or do you believe he was truly elusive and managed to evade the law for almost 30 years? My heart goes out to the victims and their relatives after their worlds were broken apart by this monster. Thanks again for stopping by for another one of our videos. We really appreciate the support. There are still a lot more stories we are looking to cover. Remember to take care of each other. The world can be unpredictable at times.